Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where people get mistaken as employees when they're not employees. And in today's episode, Opie tells a story about the time a Karen's off-duty cop husband attacks him for not serving them. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories. Don't shake your heads too hard. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this happened a few years ago. Before my mom passed away of cancer, she was a frequent flyer in the hospital. The hospital was only a few minutes from my work, so I would frequently leave work and go straight to the hospital to visit with her. I work in a pharmacy, so I wear scrubs. One day, I check in at the security desk, get my visitor sticker, and then head up to visit with my mom. My mom was struggling with eating due to cancer, and the nurses would allow us to bring her outside food to try to get her to eat. I went up and I was asked by mom to get her some food from a nearby restaurant. I head back down, and on my way to the car, an old woman calls out to me from the handicap parking. She needs to get to the ER, but she can't walk at the moment. Me, not being a bitch, say, sure, let me find someone to help, and run back inside to the security guard, as you can't get into the ER without being buzzed in. So I informed the security guard, who only about 10 minutes before checked me in as a guest, that there is a woman in the parking lot who needs assistance getting inside the ER. The guard rolls her eyes and gestures at a nearby wheelchair and says, okay, just use that, that's why they're there. Confused, I kind of stare at the chair and then go, am I allowed to do that? I don't work. The security guard then huffs and says, I don't care what unit you work on, you can do it. Just take the wheelchair and help the patient. It's not hard. That's when I say, no, I mean, I don't work here at the hospital, I'm a visitor. I then point to the sticker on my chest. The security guard figured it out finally and called for assistance, and I headed back out. I got my mom's food and came back only to hear the security guard complaining to another guard that people should not wear scrubs to the hospital if they aren't staff. So I went to the desk and gave her a look and told her that my mom is upstairs dying of cancer, but sure, I'm sorry that my visiting her after work instead of going home and changing first was a mild inconvenience for her. My mom was in the hospital for another 2 weeks before being moved to hospice, so I saw that bitch a lot, and she never apologized and wouldn't say a word when I checked in. I did consider reporting her, but I had enough on my plate without adding any more stress to my life or risking my ability to visit mom. Yeah, that security guard was one rude, lazy a-hole, guys. And the thing is, all she had to do was call somebody else to go help the lady in the parking lot. That's all. She didn't have to get up, go outside, and help the lady herself. And thank goodness Opie said something to her face, because not saying anything is what allows garbage people to continue being garbage people. And judging from the silent treatment Opie got, hopefully the security guard got the message. And I also hope Opie continued to wear scrubs every single day she went to visit mom after that. So I was debating for a bit if I should post this here, but what the heck, it kind of fits. I work for an alarm monitoring company. You know, on all the alarm commercials where they have the guy who calls the house and asks the victim if they're okay, and then sends the cops who magically teleport there instantly and catch the guy who punched your door off its hinges like the Hulk? Yeah, that's me. Companies like mine tend to contract out to smaller alarm installers, and also some of the larger ones, to take care of all the incoming alarm signals, dispatch emergency services, and take care of customer calls. This works out for everyone, as the smaller alarm companies don't have to front the cost for 24/7 monitoring, heavy-duty security, servers, and communications infrastructure. We don't handle any aspect of the installation or technical aspects of the alarms, nor do we handle anything like scheduling or service calls. We also serve as an answering service for the alarm companies, and we get in touch with their technicians to have them make emergency support calls and response. This is an important distinction, and usually the alarm installer will try to explain this to the customer when the alarm's being installed. Customers being customers, this often fails to stick. And a lot of the time, people scream at us because they think we're the same company that installed their stuff. So a few years back, we had one company that was notable for dealing with, let's say, the upper crust of society, as well as neighborhoods that house a high proportion of the older generation. This particular company also had the tendency to bend over backwards for customers. And since we were their answering service, we tended to deal with what amounted to a sizable number of 40 to 70-year-old spoiled brats, demanding to speak to our manager and telling us that they would have us fired on a semi-regular basis. Well, this guy though, he went the extra mile. We'll call him King D-Bag. Then there's me, who was sitting across from the star of the show, who I'll just call Patient Girl. So, King D-Bag's alarm starts acting up, as delicate electronics tend to do when you're an idiot who comes home every day and just jabs it furiously with fingers, while yelling at it to shut up. It starts making this admittedly annoying beeping sound. If I remember correctly, the guy had a water leak that was shorting one of his window sensors and he refused to get the window fixed. So he calls us up and Patient Girl gets the call. Sadly, I was not present for the first part of the call, but let's sum it up by saying that Patient Girl spoke with him and patiently listened to his angry demands for a support call. She then wrote up a ticket and made the call to the emergency technician for the daycare disguised as an alarm company. Now, the company's tech is supposed to have their company phone on hand at all times, 24/7. Doesn't matter if he's showering, on the toilet, fighting terrorists, traveling through time, whatever. He's supposed to have that phone in arm's reach. In reality, the phone gets put down when required. So in this case, the tech doesn't immediately answer, and Patient Girl leaves him a voicemail and then puts the ticket on hold for when he calls back. Standard procedure. So King D-Bag calls back 2 minutes later. The man is positively crapping himself in fury that he's not gotten a tech call yet. So Patient Girl gets the call again, and she patiently explains that she's called a technician, and they're waiting for him to return the call to help him resolve an issue that would likely have been dealt with if he'd bothered to open his manual. Not in those words, of course. Patient Girl was pretty much one of the sweetest and most polite people I've ever known. So with that, King D-Bag loses his lid, to the point that I can hear him through her phone despite her sitting a good 10 feet away. A rough paraphrasing of the conversation from what I could hear is, King D-Bag says, "This is completely unacceptable. I have to listen to this annoying beeping from your annoying alarm every time it rains." Patient Girl says, "I understand, sir. I've contacted a technician from this company and he'll be calling you shortly." King D-Bag says, "No, I want someone to come here right now, tonight, and fix your crappy alarm." Patient Girl tells him, "I'll inform the technician that you need an emergency service call tonight." King D-Bag then says, "What's your name?" Patient Girl says, "My name's Pam, sir." He then says, "Well, Pam, you'd better tell your technician that he'd better come out tonight and fix this stupid alarm, or I will come up to your office and start shooting." Hearing that, Patient Girl goes dead silent. Her mouth is wide open in shock. It takes her a second to respond, and she says, "Thank you, sir. Have a good night." The procedure for when a caller becomes belligerent is to immediately hang up, notify the managers and the alarm company. The latter is especially important, as while the caller doesn't know where we're located, they generally have the address and contacts for their alarm company, who installed the alarm. And threats of violence are taken very seriously in this line of work, both because there's a real chance of alarm companies being attacked to interrupt police or other emergency response, and because our certifications require us to take security dead seriously. While Patient Girl is getting over the shock of being threatened with being shot because this entitled idiot's alarm is beeping, my supervisor is busy calling straight up the chain to our bosses and the owner of the alarm company. Within minutes, we're getting calls back from both our bosses and the other company's owner. Once the situation's explained, we're told to ignore any further calls from King D-Bag. The alarm installer comes by personally in the morning, and he listens to the recordings of the phone call. By the end of it, he's utterly red in the face with fury, and then he immediately cancels King D-Bag's account and calls the police. Ultimately, no charges were pressed, as Patient Girl was the only one who would need to press any charges, because she was the one being directly threatened. She just wanted to forget the whole thing happened. King D-Bag's alarm services were cancelled completely, and his name was blacklisted among the companies we contract for. I'm glad they cancelled his services and blacklisted him, but seriously, people really have to think before they make threats like that. And also, I do understand that Patient Girl just wanted it to all go away and did nothing about it, but people like this have got to understand consequences for their actions. Like, the guy probably found another security company and are treating them like garbage too. And this person comments, "Working in law enforcement, I can tell you that nothing is more frustrating than to have an a-hole threaten or literally and physically harm someone, only to have the victim want it to go away and not press charges. I understand they want to have it end right then and there and move on, but if you don't press charges, it will most likely not end. It'll happen again and maybe worse next time. Granted, in my state, if someone does do physical harm to someone, especially if it's domestic violence, the police shall make an arrest. There's no choice in the matter. So the day this happened, I was standing outside of my hotel by the valet, just chilling. It was after midnight, like 12:30 or 1 a.m. I don't smoke, I simply wanted some fresh air. That's when a middle-aged lady, like 50 years old, comes up to the valet podium, and she starts complaining about the lengthy wait to get her car. Let's call her Karen. I'm standing there with long hair and shorts right beside this young kid dressed smartly working the valet station. Suddenly, Karen starts launching into me about her car and the wait. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, I don't even work here. I don't even come close to looking like I do either. I explained that to her, and she was just standing there. I wasn't employed by the hotel whatsoever, but that didn't stop her from berating me and the valet guy. The woman was screaming, saying, I shouldn't have to wait this long. This is ridiculous. What's your problem? You're useless. Where's my car? Yada yada yada. Eventually, with all the screaming and finger pointing at me, I had enough. I told Karen that she should shut the F up and calm down because first, I don't work there, so I don't care about her problems. Second, she shouldn't be treating people like that because I don't care what her issue is, she can't talk to people like that. And lastly, to F off. The valet dude apologizes and said they're short-staffed and he'll arrange to get her car as soon as possible. He then tells me that he was only supposed to be there for 3 hours, and that ended 3 hours earlier. So Karen walks away, loudly complaining to anyone within earshot. I then turn to the kid and I say, what a bitch, man. She needs to calm down. After about 5 to 10 minutes, Karen's husband comes along. Let's call him Mr. Overcompensation. She then starts complaining with gusto about the whole scene to him, and that's when he comes over to give me a piece of his mind. Apparently they're part of a wedding reception or something. As soon as she finished explaining to him why they don't have their car, he stomps to me and gets right in my face screaming, you can't talk to my wife like that. What's your effing problem, buddy? I tell the husband, first off, you need to back up. Secondly, whatever the issue with the valet service is not my effing problem because I don't work here. And third, your wife shouldn't talk to people like they're pieces of crap, me included. If that's her game, then I'm gonna give it back. Hearing that got him all riled up. And Mr. Overcompensation starts asking me if I want to go, and go ahead and touch me. He then quickly drops his trump card, saying, I'm a cop, you know. You don't want to F with me. I'll have my buddies roll up so fast it'll make your head spin. At that, I told him I didn't give an F. He'd better control his wife because she can't talk to me like that. So then, right in front of the skinny manager that had just arrived on scene, and immediately after telling me that he's a cop and daring me to touch him, which I had no intent to do anyways, the guy decides to grab me by the throat and push me backwards by the throat with his hand. That's when I said, go ahead, effing hit me. I triple dog dare you, you mother effer. I don't care if you're a cop, I got witnesses, which is true, money, which is a lie, and a lawyer on retainer, which is another lie. And holy, righteous anger feels pretty good. The manager tried to intervene, but he was just a little dude. The guy couldn't have diffused a matchstick that wasn't even lit. So the mini manager then says, okay, calm down, nobody touched anybody. And that's when I scream and say, hold on, dude. You just saw him push me by the throat in front of all these people. You know damn well he pushed me and I didn't do anything. You need to call the police. So once I said that, Mr. Overcompensation just backed off and he went to go sit on the stoop by Karen. He then kept arguing with me, but stayed out of my face. I then told the manager that I was going back to my room and I didn't need this BS. As I walk past people and into the lobby, Mr. Overcompensation keeps yapping away at me, saying people nowadays need to be taught lessons. So I drop this one on him. I say to him, so you're a cop, right? Shouldn't you be out shooting someone right now? And I thought he was gonna have a stroke. After walking to the lodge, I lodged my complaint with the desk clerk, I gave him my name and room number just in case there was any issues, and then went to my room. Now, I do have respect for law enforcement, don't get me wrong, but don't drop the "I'm a cop" BS when it's completely irrelevant. Also, if your wife wants to give me crap for no reason whatsoever, she needs to be prepared to have that stuff thrown right back in her ugly old face. Yeah, I'm willing to bet that guy wasn't an officer at all. And even if he was, just because he's an officer doesn't mean he can command to be served like that. I would have called his bluff though, guys, especially after being grabbed by the throat and pushed. With that said, poor on that manager though. Like, the guy didn't do anything. He basically wanted it to be brushed under the rug. Like, I cannot believe the manager said, "Okay, calm down, nobody touched anybody," despite watching the big man grab OP by the throat and push him. Are some people seriously that lazy to not want to do any extra paperwork? And I'm pretty sure if a lot of you were in OP's shoes, that manager would not have a job anymore. This was a few years ago, but it's still satisfying to think about it. At the time, I was a 24-year-old guy working as a mental health technician at a county hospital in Arizona. I was specifically trained and certified to work with teens, youth, adults, and elderly who were a danger to themselves or others. This included those that were brought in by the police for being violent and needed one-on-one supervision 24 hours a day. It's very boring and easy because the patient's sedated and strapped to the bed. This story is about one of those guys. A patient had been brought to the ER by the police for whatever reason, and had been extremely dangerous and violent with police and hospital staff. I had been requested to go to their wing of the hospital, and to watch over and restrain if needed for the hospital staff. I was just sitting in the corner of the room on my phone, probably playing games, when a nurse came in to check on him. The conversation went something like this. The nurse says to me, "Hey, I'm gonna need you to do something more than sitting there in the corner on your phone." I say to her, excuse me? The nurse says, "I need you to clean him and empty his urine bag. Don't just sit there doing nothing." I tell her, "Nope, I'm not trained to do that." The nurse then tells me, "Listen, I don't have time to deal with this. You are going to do this or I'm going to get the doctor. Which one do you want?" The nurse was really rude to me. So I tell her, "Do you see certified nurse's aide on my badge anywhere? It says MHT, mental health tech. I'm not certified to do a CNA's job. If I did clean him and change his urine bag, but did something wrong, it would be your job and not mine. Go ahead, you can get the doctor and ask him yourself." The nurse says to me, "You have no right to tell me what your job is. If you refuse to work when you're employed, then you might as well not be here. I will have your job for this." She then storms out of the room and looks for the doctor. After a few minutes, I can hear her voice outside the room. So I go to the door, still able to see my patient, to hear her, and to see the doctor. They then come inside the room, and the nurse says to the doctor, "He," pointing to me, "is telling me that he won't do what I asked him, just because he's not a certified nurse's aide." I say to the doctor, "She's telling me that I have to clean him and change his urine bag, but I told her that it would be her job if I did something wrong." The doctor then tells the nurse he's right. He has no responsibility, nor is he certified to do it. He's supposed to sit there with him and watch him to keep you safe. I think you need to do your job and stop trying to find someone to do your job. It turns out that there was no certified nurse's aide for her area that night, and she was trying to push her work off on other people, and I was her last attempt until the doctor lost his patience. And just to clarify some things. Number 1, this is at a county hospital that's no longer open in southern Arizona. Number 2, I know that the nurse could not have gotten me fired. When you work for the county, your job is pretty safe, unless you really screw up. Number 3, I'm not sure why she went to the patient's doctor. I suspect it was because she knew she was wrong, but she was hoping the doctor would side with her and try to embarrass me. And number 4, I had been warned prior to doing this 12-hour shift that I'm not allowed to do things outside my training and certification. That sometimes other departments will try to get a mental health tech to do what a certified nurse's aide would do. I think this comes from an issue we had on the geriatric ward. They would often have to call a certified nurse's aide from other wards to come up to take care of a patient. Thus, some nurses probably became upset, rightly so, and would try to get back at us by trying to push us around. And I do understand that this may sound completely absurd, yet it happened to me. It was a really screwed up hospital, and it's probably one of the reasons why it was shut down. So I guess even nurses can be Karens, right? Like finding out that she was looking for someone to push that duty onto, when I'm pretty sure it's her duty when nurses' assistants aren't available, is absolutely wild, guys. And this person says, I'm a nurse here, and any nurse that says that's the aide's job is a crappy ass nurse. A nursing assistant is there to assist, and just that. Too many nurses pawn the dirty work off on the aides, and that's messed up. Granted, if there's something like a medical issue that needs to be dealt with, then the nurse needs to deal with that first, but if they're just sitting around, there's no reason a nurse should not be doing patient care like toileting, feeding, and bathing. So this was a little over a year ago. My husband used to work as a houseman, someone who restocks things like soaps, towels, and cleaning chemicals on the maid carts. He was not house cleaning or a service boy. He worked for the nicest hotel in our tiny fishing village. And that's not saying much. The place was run horribly, and the employees were not treated well by guests or the management. This nice hotel was the only one that had its own restaurant and bar, which attracted some very interesting characters. I was also at the hotel a lot to use their Wi-Fi and chat with the bartender who I was friends with. The hotel did look good on the outside, but the rooms were dated, and amenities were minimal for something with a 3.5 out of 4 stars rating. My husband worked the night shift, 4 p.m. to midnight or so. He had come down with a terrible flu one Friday night, but his coworkers kept ditching work, so he had to cover. That's when I decided to help him out because 1, there was no management that night, 2, the job is a lot of hard work for one person and he was sick, and 3, the job requires next to no human contact. You're mostly just in maid closets, stocking things, or in the maintenance shop replacing stuff that go depleted during the day. The first few hours go well, and I'm doing most of the heavy lifting because, again, he was weakened from sickness. At around 10 p.m., I'm basically done with all the difficult stuff, and my husband just had a few more rounds to make sure the closets were locked. That's when I decide to head to the now closed hotel bar to chat with the bartender. I see my bartender friend wiping down the tables, and I sit down. He pours me some wine. The bar was closed with most of the lights off, but you can see it from the lobby where you check in. That's when a middle-aged woman wanders in and she comes to the bar. The bartender tells her, I'm sorry, we're closed. Karen says, I need a drink and I need some more pillows delivered to my room. The bartender says, as I've said, we're closed. Karen says to him, I was talking to her. Now I'm super groggy at this point from lifting heavy carts of crap, and I don't work there, so I could not make her a drink or get her pillows. The rooms were also locked and my husband had the keys. I tell her, I'm sorry, I do not work here. Karen says, of course you do. I saw you with that other kid. Now bring me a martini and pillows to room 111. The bartender tells her, ma'am, I'm not serving anymore. The bar is closed and she does not work here. Karen says to him, I said I wasn't talking to you. And what do you mean the bar's closed? It's only 10 p.m. And I saw that maid earlier with towels. Now you either get back to work or I'll get your manager. The front desk hears this and they call my husband, who's basically dead in the maintenance shop. My husband tells them that they're out of pillows, as it's a busy Friday night and other guests had depleted the supply. I say to her, look lady, I don't work here. I can't get you pillows and I'm certainly not helping someone who just insulted me. Karen then storms to the front desk guy, who's also my friend, babbling on about how I'm drinking on the job, how I'm a lazy bitch and she needs a martini. He then calmly explains that he's the manager and that I do not work here, the bar's closed, and there's no more pillows. Karen then starts screaming how unprofessional and ratty the place is because the bar is closed at 10 p.m., blah blah blah. The woman keeps going on and on until he finally asked her to leave a customer satisfaction report by dialing this phone number. She then roars up to her room and we think it's over. I finish my wine and exchange laughs at the front desk. The three of us chuckle because, yeah, closing at 10 is stupid, but not our rules. I go off to find my husband as it's almost 11 p.m. now and he's almost off. Husband and I leave, and that's when we see red and blue flashing lights as we're walking down the steps. Apparently, the lady had brought her husband down, who then threatened to attack the staff at the front desk for not getting them pillows and booze. The front desk then called the cops, and they were told if they didn't calm down, they would be thrown out. And spoiler alert, they did not calm down. And both of them were arrested by the cops, as I later learned. I do not understand why some people escalate things to the point of getting arrested, guys. Like, is that mind-boggling to you? No alcohol past 10? Okay, go find somewhere else. No towels, make do with what you've got. You don't go grabbing your husband and throwing tantrums, Karen. I really hope they learned their lesson, but with all the stories I read, probably not. It's safe to say no, they didn't. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, Opie tells a story about the time her neighbor chops down her 150-year-old tree. And she learns a lesson she'll never forget. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.